did my nails all different colors because I am 5 years old. Heyo, it's Oishi, welcome back. Today I wanted to do something that I've seen some other people on BookTube do that I really enjoy watching, and that is taking the Academy Awards and repurposing all of the categories to give the awards then to books. I think this is a really fun idea, and I would love to do it with the stuff that I read in 2020. Granted, I don't have much to choose from. I read 33 books last year, and a lot of them were rereads, so I will be trying to do mostly the new stuff I read, but here and there will be rereads thrown in there. I will leave the original creator of the tag in the description. I'm also going to leave Reagan from PERUSEPROJECT's tag down in the description too, because she's the one that I actually found this tag from. I've been watching her do it year after year for many, many years, and I always love watching her do it. So she will be in the description if you want to go check her out as well. I'm going to be doing this with the books that I managed to get to in 2020, so not all of these came out in 2020, but these are just the ones that I managed to read in that year. I actually added 4 categories, I believe, and I changed up one of them, so I will let you know when I've added categories and what I've changed. I'm also going to be trying to go in as close to the order that the actual Academy Awards happen. Of course, I don't have the exact order pinned down perfectly, but from what I remember of years and years of watching the Academy Awards, this is more or less the general shape of the awards. Okay, without further ado, let's get into the actual awards. First up, we have Best Supporting Actor or Actress, which translates to Best Side Characters, and for this one, I have to give it to The Devil All the Time. This book follows a whole host of characters in and around 2 towns in Ohio, I'm pretty sure, and it chronicles these characters as they go through life, as they spin around each other and affect each other's lives, mostly without them knowing it until eventually they do, and they essentially cause each other's downfalls. And I do have to say that all of the characters in this book are absolutely wild. Like, these are people you probably would not want to come across, but they are so interesting to watch from afar. We've got obsessed husbands, murder couples, deadbeat sheriffs, yikes, pastors. There's a whole range of really weird, gross people in this that are stellar to read about. Something I really like about these characters and this book as a whole is that a lot of the characters and their actions revolve around themes like death and religion, and it all affects the main character's life, our boy Arvin, or Tom Holland, you take your pick. And while every single character is awful in their own way, like, I don't like any of these characters, don't get me wrong, they are all terrible, terrible people, but they are so interesting to watch and so interesting to see exactly why they do the things that they do and how they then go on to affect other people. Overall, it's quite the crazy cast of characters that I think is definitely worth reading about. Please do not be like any of these people, because every awful thing you can think about, somebody in this probably does. That's why I'm giving them Best Side Characters for 2020. Next up, we have Best Costume Design, which translates to Best Book Cover of the Year. So these ones actually are 2020 book covers. Funnily enough, I actually haven't read any of these yet, but they are all in my TBR, and I am very excited to get to all of them. So I'm just gonna cycle through them. We can ooh and ah at just how beautiful these covers are. Darius the Great Deserves Better, Cemetery Boys, These Violent Delights, I Killed Zoe Spanos, and They Wish They Were Us. These are probably some of my favorites of the year. There are a really great range of book covers that came out in 2020. These are probably the ones that stood out to me the most, and hopefully one day I can actually read them and not just love the covers from afar. Next up is a category that I added. It is Best Production Design, and for this translates to Most Beautiful Locations Within the Story. For this one, I am going with The Marvels by Brian Selznick. This book has some of the most beautiful, vivid locations and set pieces that I absolutely loved being in. I mean, we've got London during the winter in, I believe it's 1997-ish. There's an old, partly like gothic theatrical house. There's like centuries-old theater full of a really rich history and a deep mystery surrounding it as well. And all of these locations are brought to life by the artwork. The artwork in this is absolutely stunning and really just captures the feeling of being in these places and the whimsy that surrounds them. Also, look at this cover. Like, if this came out in 2020, I would definitely have to give Best Cover Design, or what was it? Best Costume Design to this, because this cover is just absolutely gorgeous. I love it so much. I will never get over just how much I love this cover. But yeah, the outside is gorgeous, the inside is also gorgeous. I think this is worth reading just for the beautiful drawings and locations and just all of the whimsy that is surrounding them. Let me put it down because it is quite heavy. Next up, we have Best Visual Effects, which translates to Best Combat. Now, I didn't read a lot of fantasy this year, and I feel like that's where most of my combat stuff comes from, but I did read one book that I actually really enjoyed reading all the fight scenes in, and that is Paramnesia by Brian Wilkinson. This book follows a girl named Nora, I believe, and she almost dies at the beginning of this book, and because of that, she now can talk to the dead. It's a really fun story about this girl communing with the dead, essentially, one of the dead being her boyfriend, and then also having to figure out this mystery of what or who was trying to kill her. What's really cool is that the people who have been affected by this thing that is trying to kill them are left with purplish scars that can like shoot energy out of them, and I think that would be such a cool visual to see in combat. There's a really great battle near the end of this that is full of the heroes, the villains, dead people. It is just so much fun to navigate through the fight. Also, the dead people have their own really fun ways of fighting. One that really stood out to me was this girl who could take off her leg and then use it as a bat. I'm pretty sure that's what happens, and if that's not badass, then I don't know what is. Okay, next up is another one that I added, and that is Best Makeup and Hairstyling. For this translates to Best Character Design / Character Look. This one, I just had to give it to Zuko in the graphic novels. I know Avatar is a show, but there are also graphic novels, so I'm counting it. He has some of the most fantastic looks throughout the graphic novels, throughout the series as well. I just think the way he was designed was so good. Obviously, he has a lot of the red and gold for the Fire Nation, but the way his hair changes throughout the both the series and the books to define whether he's more with the Fire Nation, whether he's more with Team Avatar, define where he is in his character progression. I absolutely love it, and I think he genuinely has some of the best looks in the entire series and the graphic novels. Next up is another one that I added, and that is Best Editing. This translates to Best Pacing, and I know you're probably thinking, Oishi, what do you mean, best pacing? Like, how is that an award? And let me explain. Pacing is important. I think we can all agree on that as readers and as an aspiring writer. Pacing is very important. If it's too slow, then I'm bored. If it's too fast, then I have whiplash and I have no idea what the hell is going on. I didn't sign up for this. And so to be able to nail pacing, to be able to get it at a pace that is not too fast, not too slow, that goes at just the right speed, that keeps me entertained throughout, that's kind of a talent. So I am gonna give Best Pacing to Save the Date by Morgan Matson. I enjoyed this book so much. This book follows a rather large family, the youngest child of which is Charlie. All of the siblings are coming back to the house for the wedding of one of the older sisters, and basically everything that goes wrong in a wedding goes wrong. It is full of lots of hijinks, lots of chaos. Also, there's family drama in there because one of the brothers is slightly estranged from the family. It's a super fun story, but I think the pacing of it is what makes it just amazing. Save the Date rolls along at just the right speed. We spend the exact perfect amount of time with each character, with each plot point, and it moves from each plot point extremely well. Everything flows really well. It was fun, it was exciting, it kept me turning pages and made me actively excited to keep reading, and again, that is a talent. So Best Pacing, Save the Date. Next is Best Short Film, and this translates to Best Short Book. For this one, I have to give it to Le Petit Prince. This book follows a young pilot whose plane goes down in the Sahara Desert, and this is where he meets a little boy, and he is the Little Prince. The Little Prince then starts telling him stories about all of his other planets and how he ended up on Earth, and it's essentially a book full of metaphors and life lessons. I read this for French class, so I read it in the original French, and it is just a short, cute book that is chock full of great emotion and, again, life lessons. It is perfect for young kids. They could probably get a lot of wonder and whimsy out of this, but it is also fantastic for older people to read because of all of the things that it's trying to say. It's gorgeously written, metaphors and analogies galore. They're super fun to dissect, and, you know, it's a classic. So I really enjoyed this. I really recommend it to everyone as well. Again, if you are studying French, please try and read this in the original French because it is just gorgeous, and if not, the English I'm sure is also gorgeous. Next up, we have Best Documentary, which translates to Best Historical Fiction. For this one, I am going with none other than The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. This is one of my favorite books, okay? I can't get over it. This book is narrated by Death, and Death is telling the story of this girl named Liesel Memminger. She's just moved to a foster home in 1939 in Nazi Germany, escaping something from her past that her mother did not want her to be around. Things get complicated for her when her foster parents Hans and Rosa Huberman decide to hide a young Jewish man in their basement. Again, like Le Petit Prince, this is absolutely gorgeously written and has some super hard-hitting themes. It talks about how humanity is awful yet also beautiful, and how both of these coincide. It talks about how young people are supposed to be growing up in a world that is so fueled by hate and intolerance. How do you grow up in an environment like that, and how do you not also turn out to be hateful and intolerant? I absolutely love how the narrator of this story is Death. It would have been very easy for Liesel herself to be the narrator, but I think it fits the themes very well that Death himself is the narrator. He tells the story in a very interesting way because Death isn't human, so he doesn't really adhere to human storytelling conventions. There are some really strong three-dimensional characters. I feel like every character in this book needs a hug, and you grow to love absolutely everybody. It's a very interesting look at humanity at its darkest time and how at these darkest times, sometimes the light of humanity comes out. Fantastic. I absolutely love it. I've loved it for years, and I cannot recommend it enough to people. Next category is Best Animated Feature, and this translates to a book that would be adapted well into animation. For this one, I have to go with the Percy Jackson series by Rick Riordan. Now, I know there's a live-action version coming to Disney, but my sister once told me that she thinks that Percy Jackson would be fantastic as animation, and now I can't get that out of my head. I feel like Percy Jackson would be the perfect thing to adapt into animation. The vibes that come off of it would fit so well, especially with all the cool fights and all the different powers that we have. Not only would the vibes fit, but it'd also be super gorgeous. Like seeing mountains of water, seeing Annabeth disappear, and Grover plays reed pipes and have the grass grow. It would be such a beautiful, beautiful way to express this story. But seeing as we are getting a live action version from Disney Plus, my sister and I were also talking about what sort of vibes we think would fit for that. And we both agreed that things like Guardians of the Galaxy and the Umbrella Academy, or even Thor Ragnarok's fight scenes, they would be perfect ways to adapt this. With Percy Jackson, you can't be way too serious, but then you also can't not be serious sometimes. You have to find a happy middle, and I think things like Guardians of the Galaxy, Umbrella Academy, and Thor Ragnarok did that very well. So I really hope that with our live action version, we can capture some of that feeling. Fun, lighthearted, and head-ass, but serious when it needs to be. But yeah, I think this would have been suited so well to animation, and I really hope they don't mess up the live action version. Next up, another category that I added, that is Best International Feature, and this translates to Best Book Starring POCs and or by a POC author. For this one, I am going with Darius the Great Is Not Okay by Adib Khorram. This book follows Darius Kellner, who feels like he doesn't really fit in. He's always had a little bit of a not exactly strained, but not perfect relationship with his father. Things sort of change for him when he and his family take a trip back to Iran. It's here where he spends an extended period of time with his grandparents and also a boy named Sorab, who he becomes very close friends with. It is an absolutely gorgeous story. It shattered my soul and put it back together. It talks about friendship, family, depression, life. It touches on the sometimes strained atmosphere around mental illness with some POC families, and that is a very real thing. I feel like some POC communities don't really talk about this sort of stuff. I don't really know why. It's just kind of not a thing that happens, and that is very much reflected in Darius the Great. It also, just for fun, throws in an identity crisis, because he is a mixed kid. He feels further away from his father, and he feels like he can't open up or do anything right. So when he is back in Iran, he feels, again, out of place, can't really speak Farsi very well, speaks Klingon better than Farsi, and then also the fact that he does have a mental illness. It just makes it very hard for him to feel connected to this place, but thankfully he has a friend he can rely on, and it's a gorgeous story of friendship, family, and learning how to be a human. This was honestly one of my favorite books that I read last year, and I cannot wait to read Darius the Great Gets Better. I might reread Is Not Okay, just for kicks and giggles, before I get to Deserves Better, because I loved this so much, and I want to go back to it. Next up, we have Best Cinematography, and this is the one that I actually changed. I think the original translation for this was Best Plot Twist, but to me that didn't make as much sense, so I changed it to Best Atmosphere or Most Atmospheric. I feel like that makes a little more sense in my head for cinematography to be translated to atmosphere. For this one, I'm going with I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid. This book is so weirdly unsettling, it's creepy. There's always this feeling that you don't know what's entirely going on, and that's why it's very, very weird. It's honestly shudder-worthy. Like, everything is slow moving, it's thick and viscous, and it gets even more and more creepy as it continues. I think it's a great atmosphere for this type of story. It's so strange and very much like I don't want to be here anymore. Please, like, can we be over this? Best Original Screenplay. Okay, this translates to Most Unique or Interesting World. Now, normally I would probably give this to a fantasy, seeing as those worlds are very different from our own and they can explore some really, really cool things, but funnily enough, I did not read a lot of fantasy in 2020. The most fantasy I read, I'm pretty sure, was Percy Jackson and Harry Potter, and I don't want to give this to either of those, again, since I already gave Percy Jackson to animated, and also Harry Potter is like, you know, everyone knows Harry Potter, so I want to give this to something else. So I went a little bit of an unconventional route, and I'm gonna give this to Crazy Rich Asians. When I tell you that this environment is insane, I mean it. This entire book is just being surrounded by people that are filthy rich, and they have all of these crazy connections with people. There's gossip, politics, family drama that I love in stories. It's just so much fun. Probably a reason why I loved Emma so much, because it essentially had all of those things as well. I think this is a wild time, and yeah, it's not the craziest world because it's still our own, but it's so far removed from what most of us know that I think it deserves Best Original Screenplay here, or Most Unique or Interesting World. Best Director. This translates to the best author you encountered for the first time in this year. Now, I have two for this one, because I just could not choose one. The first is Adib Khorram, who wrote Darius the Great is Not Okay. I already talked about this in Best International Feature, but Darius absolutely broke me, but he also gave me so much love, and there is so much to love about this book. There is so much emotion. The writing in this also really captured every feeling that you were meant to feel with this book. There were mood swings, uncertainty, wanting to feel like you belong, but also hating that you don't. I think Adib Khorram did a fantastic job with this, and I absolutely cannot wait to get to Darius the Great Deserves Better. I could talk about this book forever, but I feel like I'm just going to be repeating myself over and over. If you have not read this, I highly, highly suggest that you do. And the second director, author, that I'm giving this to is Celeste Ng for Everything I Never Told You. This book is absolutely fantastic. This also broke me, much like Darius the Great, but it again put me back together at the end, and I think a huge reason why is because of Celeste Ng's writing. She employs such smooth, beautiful, soft writing that brings to life this devastating story. Her writing guides you through it. It like envelops you in a way. I don't know how else to describe her writing, but it is just so well done, well thought out, and it's beautifully crafted. I can't wait to get to Little Fires Everywhere. I've heard that that is fantastic as well, but yeah, absolutely loved Celeste Ng this year and Adib Khorram. Next up, we have Best Actor. Now, this translates to Best Male Character, and I have to give it to Darius Kellner from Darius the Great is Not Okay by Adib Khorram. I feel like I've talked about this so many times, but I guess we'll do it again. Darius Kellner goes through it in this book. He has a lot on his plate that he's trying to deal with, again, depression, family issues, self-esteem issues, identity issues, and he struggles with it and works through it all over the course of this book. His voice and personality is so distinct. Again, going back to Adib Khorram and his fantastic writing, I think he really showed us what Darius is like as a person. He has very distinct thoughts and ways of thinking. I just want to give him a hug. By the end of the book, I'm so proud of all of the emotions and issues he's been able to work through, but at the same time, everything isn't solved. It's not like everything is 100% better all of a sudden. He still has a lot of stuff to deal with. That's probably why there's another book after this, but he definitely starts down this path of healing, not only with himself, but with the people around him, and I love to see that in characters. Essentially, Darius the Great deserves all of the love in the world. Please send your love his way. Next up, we have Best Actress, and this translates to Best Female Character. For this one, I am going to go with the young woman from I'm Thinking of Ending Things. I don't think she has a name. Like, I don't remember reading her name, and I think that's intentional. So we're gonna call her a young woman. Being in her head is super interesting. Most of this book is seeing as she recounts her relationship and also fights with herself on whether to end it or not, and it is really interesting to see her start figuring out what is going on in her world and what she's doing here and what is her role in this whole thing. It is very, very scary. It's horrifying, it's psychologically draining, and I feel so bad for her, but I think she is a really interesting person to be around and see as she starts to unravel this whole mystery. I never want to be her, essentially, and I don't think anybody would ever want to be here. She deserves a lot of love because she, again, like Darius, went through it. And finally, the last award I have to hand out today is Best Picture, which translates to Best Standalone Novel. And for this one, I am going to give it to Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng. I had a difficult time deciding which book to give this to. It was either between Everything I Never Told You or Darius the Great is Not Okay. But eventually I realized that Darius the Great is not a standalone anymore, it has a second book, so I decided to give it to Everything I Never Told You. I don't think I explained what this was about earlier, so let's do that now. This book follows a Chinese-American family living in Ohio in the 70s? Yes, Ohio. The story starts when their favorite daughter, Lydia, is found dead in the lake. From there, everything starts to fall apart for them. It is essentially the picture of a family falling apart because of decades-old issues that have stemmed from before even the relationship started between the parents and have trickled down to the kids. It is a gorgeous and devastating story, difficult to read at times. It handles some really serious issues, family drama that's rooted in societal issues, and also families' insecurities like ethnicity, gender, high expectations and standards placed on them by themselves and by others. It tackles the difficulties that this family has had to deal with from its very inception and how that has really messed them up. What I love about this book is that we get to see each and every perspective. We get to see the parents and all three kids as well, and see how their perspectives don't end up matching up with the perspectives of other people in their family, and how that causes even more grief and strife between them. No one talks in this book, essentially, and I understand why there is so many communication issues. Is because everybody is dealing with their own insecurities that they are then putting onto the rest of the family, and then the rest of the family is dealing with their stuff, putting them onto them. It's just this huge cesspool of things that these characters have had to deal with, and that is essentially breaking apart the family, but it's also, in this way, rebuilding it. You break things apart to then rebuild them. You break things apart to then rebuild them stronger, and that is exactly what this book is about. Absolutely loved it. My favorite standalone of the year, and I highly recommend it to everybody. Okay, there you have it. That is all I have for you. Those were my answers to the Bookish Academy Awards. Overall, I feel like my 2020 reading year was not entirely the strongest, especially for new books. Like I said, I reread a lot of stuff this year, but the new stuff I did read was pretty good. This year, I'm hoping to be able to read even more and read even more new stuff, and I'm already off to a pretty good start. I've already read 5 books this year, and I think in 2020 it took me until April to read 5 books, so I'm already doing much better this year. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. Comment down below, let me know what some of your answers to these different prompts would be. Again, I will leave the original creator of this tag and Reagan from PERUSEPROJECT in the description if you want to go check them out. If you like this sort of stuff and you want to see more of it from me, please make sure to hit that subscribe button because I make new videos every Friday. Also, I'm on platforms, so if you want to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Goodreads, and Letterboxd, those links will be in the description down below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!